All right. Okay. This is the Guts Honest Truth webinar, and health starts in the gut, guys. This is obviously one of the most important aspects when it comes to overall health. So we're going to jump right into understanding the importance of your gut health and ultimately what we can do to help improve our gut health so that we can improve our total health and wellness, even when it comes to disease recovery. So again, my name is Dr. Brent DeLong. I'm a Max Living chiropractor here in Norman, Oklahoma. And we want to make sure that we are really delivering you guys with some of the most cutting, up-to-date information when it comes to getting healthy, staying healthy. So our mission is to really just empower longer, healthier lives through chiropractic care and the integration of the 5 essentials. So Hippocrates, said it best, in the beginning when he was talking about how all disease starts in the gut. And I absolutely understand that most of these disease processes all have one very, very common thing, and it's that there is just a terrible digestive health. Their gut health is just all sorts of out of whack, and it leads to all this stuff. I mean, look at like autoimmune disease, brain health, cognitive issues, cancers, fatigue, joint pain, mood disorders, things like depression, anxiety, learning disabilities, for infertility issues, pregnancy complications, asthma, allergies, food sensitivities, like all this stuff. Again, it all comes back to this underlying issue where there's root problems in the digestive system. And what's most incredible, though, is if you can start focusing on healing the gut, how your body's ability to heal and regenerate and to eliminate a lot of this stuff is just incredible. So the major premise is this, and it's that the body is able to heal. This is something that they just do not talk about in the general, allopathic model, is that they don't respect the body's potential to heal. Our natural state is health. And when you work with that power and you work with that innate intelligence and you work with supporting the body, then health is it is the outcome. And that is why there are so many miracles in offices like this when it comes to health restoration, not simply just treating disease processes. Now, when we say like health starts in the gut, I'm going to say that Hippocrates missed this one major thing, and it's that what controls the gut is the nerve system. When it comes to your body's ability to heal, you have this amazing innate intelligence, but it is stored in your nerve system. The nerve system is what is in control of every single aspect of your entire physiology. So for your heart to beat, lungs to breathe, even for you to digest food and absorb that food and turn that food into muscle cells or eyeball cells, your nerve system has to coordinate every aspect of that physiology. So your nerve system has to come first. If you're not focusing on your nerve system and making sure that there's zero interference in the body's ability to self-coordinate and self-regulate and heal, then a lot of this other stuff that we're going to talk about is, yes, it will help, but it's not going to help as much as it could if you are also focusing on the health of your nerve system. But this is something I want to spend a little bit of time on, and it's really understanding the allopathic model versus the vitalistic model. In offices like ours, it's really a holistic or it's a vitalistic philosophy and viewpoint. And here's kind of the main differences. When it comes to, allopathic, it is really just the idea that you are just a bunch of parts. It is very mechanistic. And that is why there's so many specific health doctors. If you have a heart issue, you go to the heart doctor. If you have a GI issue, you go to the gastroenterologist. If you have hormonal issues, you go to the hormone doctor. Again, it's so specialized, and it's really, there's a lot of criticisms to this when you look at the allopathic and just this like idea that there's one cause to just this one disease. It's this doctrine of specific etiology, and it emphasizes genetics and the strength of the virus or the germ disease process, as opposed to any focus on the strength of health or the body. So the main criticism is just the primary issue is that it's this reductionist approach to health and illness, where complex conditions are reduced to single specific causes. And it's just an oversimplification. It really ignores all these other factors that contribute to health and wellness, when especially stuff like environment, social issues, emotional issues, and spiritual factors. So additionally, the doctrine of specific etiology can lead to this oversimplification on just treating symptoms rather than addressing the underlying causes of illness. And the symptoms are just identified versus the cause. And again, that's one kind of major issues in the current medical system, is that they really just want to treat symptoms without giving any thought to the underlying causes. And there's absolutely there's no focus on getting the body healthy. It's all managing the disease process. So it can be limited. The doctrine of specific etiology can be limited in its ability to address the interconnectedness of different aspects of health and wellness. Holistic practitioners recognize that the body is a complex system and that the physical, emotional, and spiritual factors all play a role in overall health. Focusing solely on a specific cause of disease may ignore the broader context of the illness as it occurs. So it's very, it cripples a person's ability to overcome their illness when you're just focusing on just specific symptoms or specific underlying causes. The person that brings to the identify of their conditions. So the acceptance of this and the idea that we want to focus on the overall aspect of it is just, it's critical. They also have this approach where it's like opposite of cure. So if you have this is why they prescribe antibiotics or antivirals or antidepressants versus, so again, that approach is very much working against the body. They're not working with the body. We believe that the body is intelligent and things are occurring for a reason. So if you have high blood pressure, the body's doing that on purpose. We don't want to just give you a drug to fight the blood pressure. We don't want to give you an anti-blood pressure medication. We want to figure out, well, why is that response occurring? And if we can understand why that response is occurring and why is that intelligent response happening, well, then we can work with the body to correct the cause. So that way the body has this ability to heal. And then obviously the allopathic model, it's all about pharmaceutical, and surgical intervention. Again, there's no, and I'm not saying sometimes this stuff isn't necessary or needed, and it is absolutely necessary and needed in a crisis care system where there's immediate like death that's going to occur if we don't have intervention. But if it's just when you apply that system to a wellness approach, so healthcare, then it literally creates one of the sickest cultures in the entire world, and that's what we're seeing right now. Right now, if that system worked, we would not see that half of the population suffers with a chronic illness. So that's where Max Living and the 5 approaches to health really is just, it has the ability to revolutionize and change our entire culture. And that's what we want for ourselves, our patients, for you guys, is we want to help you start to implement the 5 essentials. So that way you are not falling victim to these sort of statistics, because absolutely the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So it is insane to think that you can continue to live this standard American lifestyle and not end up with these sort of chronic illnesses that we see everybody else suffering with. So here's the kind of the dynamic of the digestive system. So the GI tract is more than just a hole here and a hole here, and food goes in and then waste comes out. But there's all these intricate facets when it comes to, even just what happens in your mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, your small and large intestines, all the way through your system here. So let's kind of break this down. The microbiome, and what is it? Some of you have probably heard it. This is not like a new concept. This is becoming very, very popular when it comes to getting healthy. A lot of holistic practitioners are going to start with focusing on your microbiome, and it's because its implications have so much to do when it comes to your overall health. So let's really understand that your microbiome is it's made of trillions of bacteria, viruses, funguses, which all create this ecosystem in your digestive tract. This is something important too. When we think of bacteria and viruses, we immediately have this like negative connotation to it, but just understand the bacteria and the viruses and the funguses that are within us or on our skin, the trillions of cells, we have more bacterial cells and viral cells than we have even human DNA cells. So there is more bacteria here than there is, human Brent cells. And that's important to understand, because we don't want to look at bacteria and viruses as just evil things that are there to harm us. You have to understand that these things are there to help us. If it weren't for these things, we wouldn't have health, we wouldn't have life. So again, we got to make sure that we're working with the good stuff, not just fighting the bad stuff. So here's kind of the three keys of your GI system. There's digestion, which is how your organs take food in and break it down. There's absorption, which is your body's ability to absorb the nutrients. So you aren't just what you eat, you are what you absorb. And then obviously it's the elimination of waste products. Again, so that way, again, your body can get rid of the stuff it doesn't use. And obviously if we don't have that proper elimination process, then we can absolutely get toxicity issues. And again, if that system's not working right anywhere in that, whether it's the digestion, the absorption, the elimination, it's going to create some serious disease processes. But we have to understand that we get symptoms for reasons. Our body is constantly trying to talk to us. So if we're getting different warning signs, instead of just trying to, stop your phone from making a sound. So if you're putting your phone on silent and you're not getting the messages, there's no way that you're going to be able to respond appropriately. So if there's an emergency going on and somebody's trying to get a hold of you, but you have your phone on silent, or you keep hitting the avoid button or whatever, the silent button when your phone rings, then you're never going to get those signals. You're never going to get that proper information. So that's what happens when we're just having these sort of issues or these symptoms like bloating, abdominal pain, constipation, nausea, diarrhea. If we're just constantly ignoring it and constantly taking medications, you're gonna miss the big picture. Anytime you have a symptom, it is your body trying to tell you something. Do not simply ignore that symptom or cover up the symptom. You have to figure out, why is the body doing that? Because if you consistently ignore it, you're going to allow further damage and further disease to build. So leaky gut, this is probably one of the number one issues when it comes to GI dysfunction that leads to major disease processes. So some of you might have heard it, but let's take kind of a further step in. So leaky gut is basically when you have these junctions, these cell junctions in your digestive tract. And you can see here how they're really tight and close together. This is important. Here's kind of a reference. Your skin, the cells on your skin are around 12 layers deep. Yeah, you have 12 layers of skin cells. So it's pretty tough. Your stomach is only one. The stomach lining is one cell layer thick. You have like these mucosal lining and these mucosal cells. And then after that, it's just into your bloodstream. So you should have these tight junctions. Now, when you're chronically exposed to these things here, stress. So if you're chronically stressed out, if you live in a stressful environment, if you're exposing yourself to toxins, and that can be personal care products, that can be environmental toxins, that can be household cleaners, things that you're just exposed to on a regular basis, pathogens, food particles. So if you're eating a lot of gluten, sugar, processed foods, preservatives, food colorings, these things just create massive amounts of stress to the gut. Medications, including things like antibiotics. And again, antibiotics have some really damaging effects. And this is really kind of important to understand. Even one process or one exposure or one episode of taking an antibiotic has the ability to totally destroy your gut. If you've ever had or have to take an antibiotic, it is critically important that you go through a very specific GI reboot process to heal the gut, restore the mucosal layers, and to create the junctions back in this tight formation. Because as these things occur, you can see that the junctions start to spread apart, and that's what allows these different particles, again, whether it's toxins or food particles, to leach through the cell layer, and then it starts to go into these different responses. So then you start to get immune responses, you start to get inflammatory responses, and over time it can even turn into not just food sensitivities or systemic inflammatory responses, but then it can even lead to things like autoimmune disease. So yes, one of the leading causes of autoimmune diseases are leaky gut. And then we have stuff like SIBO, which is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's a condition where this bacteria just consistently grows in the gut, and then it creates all sorts of massive disease processes. So it's in about 80% of the population, and it contributes to like IBS and things like that. So symptoms of SIBO are abdominal pain, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, nausea, reflux. But again, how many people have issues like this and they just take medications? They have no idea that they have this small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And instead of addressing the bad bacteria and the imbalance in the microbiome, they're just taking drugs, which ultimately cause more damage, more inflammatory responses in the gut, which lead to more leaching through the gut lining, which causes more inflammation, which leads to more bad bacteria, and then so on and so forth. So here, let me kind of break down specifically how this occurs and kind of the underlying causes of SIBO. So there's a lot of different causes, but kind of the number one cause of this allowing bacteria overgrowth is low stomach acid. In fact, if you could just really improve stomach acid, it's going to eliminate a lot of these issues. So let's talk about this. So low stomach acid. So low stomach acid, and let's talk about why your stomach has to be acidic. So if you're drinking like alkaline water, one of the major problems is that water will cause it'll counterbalance the acidity in your stomach. And if your stomach acid gets low, then it does not kill bacteria as it enters your system. So every time you're drinking or eating, there's going to be bacteria on it. There's just like no way around it. There's just bacteria on food. And the number one like line of defense, I mean, think of it as like in the night in like armor in your stomach is like high stomach acid. And so as your body brings that food in, the stomach acid starts the digestive process. If you have low stomach acid, it's hard to digest food. It's also, if you have low stomach acid, then you can't kill the bacteria. That's why you have to have high stomach acid. It has to be able to kill all the bad bacteria. So now if you have low stomach acid, the bacteria doesn't die. It doesn't kill. In fact, it loves the environment of low acidity. And so then the bacteria starts to build up, and then it starts to move down into the digestive tract, and then it goes into the intestines, and that's where you build this bad bacteria. So other causes of low stomach acid is just your standard American diet. High processed foods, high sugars, low nutrients, stress, taking stuff like antacids, medications, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, those things like Tylenol, ibuprofen, all those things, they destroy the stomach. And again, it leads to a lot of symptoms. And one of them is acid reflux. So the cause of acid reflux is low stomach acid, not too much stomach acid. I don't know how the medical system like has this backwards, because if someone has acid reflux, the number one recommendation is to take an antacid, which is terrible. It's going to cause all that. It's going to lower your stomach acid, allow all this bacteria to build. It's going to destroy your ability to digest food, and it's going to cause more stomach acid. So the best way to cure this sort of stuff is to increase your stomach acid. And there's lots of different ways to do that. But one of my number one favorite ways is to do apple cider vinegar. So I do an apple cider vinegar drink typically every single morning. If you had gone through our metabolic workshop, we talked about taking this in the evening, apple cider vinegar, because it helps to manage blood sugar. And so it's really helpful with managing insulin levels and blood sugar for weight loss. If you do it in the morning, it kind of increases the stomach acid and really helps for your body digest food. It works great with helping with acid reflux, bloating, all sorts of stuff. So I'm a big fan of increasing apple cider vinegar. There's a couple other things that are really good for helping with stomach acid, like taking vitamin C is huge. So, but you got to make sure you're avoiding the sugars, the sodas, like all that sort of stuff. So then if you don't have good stomach acid and then that stuff moves forward, then it can even cause things like your immune system to get trashed. So that's one of the things that's damaging the most, is if you have bad digestive functions, you're going to have a really weak immune system, which allows all sorts of other diseases to build. You're more susceptible to getting flus. You're more susceptible to getting colds. When, the epidemic was huge with coronavirus, obviously, if you have a low immune system, you're more likely to get, sick with coronavirus, or you're going to get sicker if you get exposures to it. So just understand that having a bad gut is going to ruin your immune system. So that's why, again, it's one of the most important reasons why to make sure we're focusing on gut health is just so we have a strong immune system so we can fight off viruses and bacteria and colds and flus and obviously stuff like cancer even. So, and just because depression is an epidemic, let's really focus on this. 95% of the body's serotonin levels produced in the gut. Now, your nerve system is what regulates your serotonin levels. In fact, research shows if you have misalignments in the upper part of the neck, it causes blood pooling in the venous plexus, which allows your body's inability to regulate serotonin levels. So that's why so often someone comes in and maybe they started because their neck hurts and they start to get adjusted and they notice that their mood improves a lot. Well, that happens for a couple reasons. One of the reasons is because it's reducing stress on the nerve system in the upper part of the neck, which allows your body to self-regulate your serotonin levels. But obviously, like the nerves in your neck and your back, they control how your stomach functions. So remember, your gut is where like the serotonin level, where the serotonin is created, but it's the nerve system that tells it what to do. And so if there's a disconnect between the brain and the gut, you have a decrease in function, and it's going to affect your serotonin levels, which again is going to lead to chronic mood issues and depressions. Now, if you just have a dysfunction in the gut, if you have leaky gut or an imbalance in your microbiome, you're not going to produce the correct levels of serotonin. So again, it's going to lead to, again, symptoms and issues like depression. In fact, a lot of the new research out there when it comes to treatment of depression is focusing on gut function and allowing your body to create these neurotransmitters like serotonin levels appropriately. But it's also why it's so incredible when you start to implement these 5 essentials, get adjusted, focus on your gut health, how it's going to help with so much more than just stomach aches or neck pain, but it's going to help to even improve and has the potential to reverse an epidemic when it comes to things like depression. So here are the 5 pillars of GI distress: maldigestion, inflammation, dysbiosis, metabolic imbalance, and infection. So let's dive into this. So maldigestion is basically when your body is just not breaking down food appropriately. So if you're not breaking down food, you're not going to be absorbing it. And if you're not absorbing it, you're going to become nutrient deficient. And that's going to lead to a massive amount of disease process. So again, if your body is not producing the correct amount of like pancreatic enzymes, if the gallbladder is not functioning properly, if the liver is not functioning properly, if it's not releasing digestive enzymes or bile, obviously you're not digesting food. Again, if your stomach acid is too low, you're not digesting food. So again, you got to make sure you have proper stomach acid. You have to make sure that you have healthy liver function. You got to make sure your gallbladder is functioning properly to release those digestive enzymes. And you have to make sure that your pancreas is functioning properly. So that's one of the reasons why we have to make sure we're avoiding processed foods and sugar issues, because if you're burning the pancreas out, it's going to affect pancreatic enzyme production. And again, it's going to lead to more and more of this maldigestion. It's also one of the reasons why we have to make sure we're consuming healthy fats, but you also have to make sure your gallbladder is functioning properly. If you have like a gallbladder issue, you've got to make sure you address that. Do not let the medical system cut out your gallbladder. You have to have a gallbladder for healthy function, especially if there's any stress on your liver. The gallbladder is where it stores bile, and bile is critical for your digestion and absorption, specifically of vitamins and minerals. So if you have a healthy functioning gallbladder and you're consuming healthy levels of fat, look at everything that it's going to help with. It helps with building cell membranes, and the membrane of the cell, the outer layer of the cell, is actually the brain of the cell. It's not the nucleus of the cell. It's the brain of the cell is the outer fat membrane. And that's what allows things to go in and out. So waste products out, nutrients in. So if you're healthy at a cellular level, then you are going to be healthy as a whole system. It absorbs vitamins, so critical. If you're not getting enough healthy fats, you have a deficiency in absorption of vitamins. So if you're taking really expensive, healthy vitamins and minerals, so if you're taking multivitamins, but if you're not getting enough healthy fat, the odds that you're absorbing those vitamins is really low. It's important for cushioning vital organs. It protects you from extreme temperatures. It regulates hormones. If you're not consuming enough healthy fat, it might be the reason why you have low testosterone or why you have hormonal imbalances, or If you have real bad cycle issues or inability to get pregnant, it could be because you are not consuming enough healthy fat and your hormones are just crazy out of whack because you have nothing to build healthy hormones with. Healthy fat is an anti-inflammatory. Okay, so it lowers inflammation. It's critical for cellular detoxification, again, through helping with the cellular membrane. Your brain is made up of fat. So if you have a deficiency in healthy fat, then you're going to have an increased risk of dementia or cognitive decline. So it's critical for fat burning. Again, there's this myth that fat makes you fat, and it's not. It's your body's inability to burn fat that makes you fat. And then obviously it's critical for brain function. So if you have a gallbladder issue, there's specific protocols that you can go through to detox or cleanse the gallbladder. And if you have any signs of gallbladder issues, digestive issues, again, bloating, constipation, like, again, just any signs that you could have gallbladder dysfunction, or maybe even went to the medical doctor and they did some tests and you have some gallbladder issues, instead of just cutting it out, let's talk. There's a very specific gallbladder cleanse protocol that we have that has huge success rates with helping the gallbladder heal. So just make sure you talk to us, and maybe I'll even post that into our closed group so you can see that. So digestive issues, number 2 pillar is chronic inflammation. And this is what's really scary. If you have leaky gut and you have inflammation in your intestinal lining, it is going to create systemic inflammation. And this can lead to anything from increased back pain. So if you're coming in getting adjusted and your back still hurts or your neck still hurts, then it could be because you have systemic inflammation. So any sort of arthritic issues, whether it's in your hands and your feet and your knees and your back, if you reduce your gut inflammation, which will reduce your systemic inflammation, your body is going to feel significantly better. But we also know that inflammation, like chronic systemic inflammation, doesn't just cause pain, but it's like the leading factor of what moves you closer towards heart disease or even stuff like cancer. So again, reducing gut inflammation will reduce chronic systemic inflammation, which will, again, protect you from stuff like heart disease or cancer. Metabolic imbalances, guys, this is huge. If you are not consuming enough phytonutrients, then your body will not be able to, again, feed good bacteria. So we want to promote good bacteria and eliminate bad bacteria. This imbalance will destroy, again, gut function. And you'll get, again, it'll lead to things like inflammatory responses. So this is why it is critical to eat organic food. The difference between non-organic food and organic food isn't like how much vitamin A or vitamin C it has. It is the amount of phytonutrients in it. So when you have these genetically modified foods, or if they're plastered with pesticides and stuff like that, it's going to reduce the amount of phytonutrients in the food. And so if you're consuming that, you don't have enough phytonutrients, you're not feeding the good bacteria, and obviously the bad bacteria is going to win. It's another reason why I'm such a huge fan of consuming green supplements. So when I do my smoothies, when I do my protein smoothie in the morning, there's no way I'm not putting a scoop of greens in there, because I want those live enzymes. I want the phytonutrients. And here's another reason why everyone should probably do like a green supplement. It's just, there's no way you're consuming enough fruits and vegetables to get the live enzymes, to get the phytonutrients that you need. Even if you have a really good nutrition, I'm not saying you might not have a good nutrition protocol, but just the nutrient deficiencies, the amount that you technically need to get enough it's really hard to do that. So it's an easy way to supplement with. This is also one of the things that I do for my daughter. She's 7. She loves her smoothies, but the reason I'm so focused on making sure she gets that is because she's a kid. She's picky. She doesn't like to eat a lot of vegetables. So it's just a great way to kind of sneak those live enzymes, those phytonutrients into her system to make sure that she has a healthy digestive tract and she's absorbing her nutrition. So one of the things that will ruin your metabolic function is too much exposures to glyphosate. So glyphosate is what they use as a pesticide herbicide. And if you're eating, especially if you're eating genetically modified food, which basically, so glyphosate kills stuff. Okay. So they genetically engineered these plants to be resistant to glyphosate. So that way they can dump all this poison on the food and it won't kill the plants. It'll just kill everything else. So there's just lots and lots of chemicals on these plants. And so then you're consuming those, and that just ruins your, I mean, one of the worst things it does is just it destroys your gut health. And we know that it's linked to cancer. I mean, there's been, $1 million lawsuits won against these, food industries because of the amount of chemical exposures causing cancer. So pillar number 4 is dysbiosis. And again, it just refers to a disruption of the microbiome. Again, it's this bacterial overgrowth. It's an imbalance. Your good bacteria has been ruined from antibiotics, from processed foods, from too much sugar. And so when you've got this dysbiosis, this gut function issues, it's going to allow bad bacteria to grow. So what we need to do is focus again on how to feed good bacteria. And again, one of those ways is to make sure you're eating fermented foods, you're eating lots of healthy fiber through healthy fruits and vegetables, consuming stuff like green supplements, stuff like that. So probiotic rich foods, kefir, sauerkraut, organic, whole, when it comes to whole milk, grass-fed beef, plain yogurts that are, again, they don't have a bunch of sugar in them, and it's whole fat yogurt. Okay. Tempeh, and then kimchi. So these are some of the best probiotic rich foods that you can consume. I'm a big fan of taking actual probiotics. Now, if you're taking a probiotic and you get symptoms from it, like if you've ever taken a probiotic and it makes like your stomach hurt, the odds are it's because you don't have the proper like gut function. So again, you have an imbalance in like bad bacteria. So you got to make sure that you're killing that bad bacteria. And you kill the bad bacteria by increasing your stomach acid. And then if it's really bad, you need to make sure you're taking like a proper gut GI. So things like lysozyme or something like that, because that's going to kill all the bad bacteria in the food, or I'm sorry, in your gut. So again, increasing stomach acid, decreasing the cause of the bad bacteria, and then increasing things like supplements that like a GI detox. And then obviously infections. So chronic infections are going to cause, again, an overgrowth in bacteria. So if you have maybe bacterial overgrowth or a yeast overgrowth or maybe like a parasite, then we might need to do like more of a parasite detox. So here are kind of the 3-step process. So the 3-step process to healing and recovering. So it's identifying the cause. So what's causing the dysfunction? Remove the interference and restoring the balance. That's as simple as that. Health is really simple, but it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Identifying the cause and removing the cause isn't necessarily easy, but it's really, really simple. Here are the 5 causes: too much sugar, damaged fats, refined carbohydrates, exposures to stuff like glyphosate, and artificial sweeteners. It's that simple. Now, are they easy to avoid? No, it is not easy to avoid the excess sugar. There's like sugar in everything. Okay, so identifying where these excess sugars are coming from, identifying the damaged fat. So examples of damaged fats, that's going to be like your hydrogenated oils, partially hydrogenated oils. It's things like seed oils, canola oils. It's fried foods. Again, it's damaged fats versus healthy fats. You have to increase your healthy fats. So things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, grass-fed beef, wild caught salmon, so stuff like that. And then obviously, like you guys know, like refined carbohydrates, breads, pastas. And again, you want to make sure you're getting organic foods that are low on the glyphosate, so that there's not a lot of exposure to these pesticides and herbicides. And then what's even worse than sugar is obviously your artificial sweeteners. So that's aspartame, that's your Splendas, that's your sweet and lows. It's sucralose. Is a chemical derivative, and it is known to just wreak havoc in your digestive system. It's known to be a neurotoxin. So again, this is stuff that we just have to avoid at all costs. So removing the interference. So here are kind of the 4 R's to healing. Number 1, it's remove. Removing bad bacteria, yeast, parasites. So again, this is that GI detox. And again, we'll talk about specifically what you want to take supplement-wise to reduce that. Now, in the allopathic model, this is kind of the way I think about it. In the allopathic model, if you have bad bacteria, like if you have a yeast overgrowth or if you have a bad bacteria like SIBO, think of it like you have terrorists in the city. And there's these little pockets of terrorists. There's a couple that live over here in this neighborhood, or there's a couple that live over here in this neighborhood, or they have, they're occupying this apartment in this building. So in the medical world, they want to drop an atom bomb on the entire city just to kill those terrorists. instead of specifically going in and finding those cells with this elite unit of, Army commando CIA guys or whatever. They're going in there and they're just taking out the bad guys, where they're not hurting all these civilians. They're not destroying the city to just get to these few bad guys. But that's what happens when we're taking an antibiotic, and that's ultimately the allopathic approach. And we don't want that. We want to go in there very specifically with specific supplements that are going to work with the body to promote the good bacteria and to allow the body to kill the bad bacteria. So phase 2 is the repair phase. Protect, nurture, restore the gut's intestinal mucosal layer. So again, very specific foods that are high in healthy fibers. And then we want to make sure we're doing, sauerkrauts. We want to make sure that we're doing these foods that have really good bacteria in them. And then again, there are very specific supplements that are going to support mucosal layers, and it's going to help make sure that we're balancing the bacteria in the gut. And then obviously replace. So again, we want to make sure we're correcting our food, so we're not constantly. So if you're doing all this stuff like a GI detox and doing like a GI protocol to heal the gut, but if you're not changing the actual nutrition protocols that caused it in the first place, then you're just going to cause it again. So again, you have to make sure you're consistently identifying these causes and fix these causes, so that you're not just, again, using the detox system or using the GI reboot system to treat a symptom. We want to make sure that we're using that to heal, and then we got to make sure that we're stop damaging the gut by replacing that. And then obviously we're replenishing. So phase 4 is replenishing the microbiome. So restore the balance. And so this is really the way that we're going to do it. We're going to work with this specific system. So if you have bacterial overgrowth, if you have digestive issues or any of those symptoms, this is going to be the protocol and the process that we're going to work with as far as helping to restore the gut, to heal the gut lining. So it's all about removing, replacing, restoring. Okay, guys? Now, obviously, we don't want to make sure that we're missing when it comes to the nerve system. So again, make sure your spine, your nerve system is healthy. Again, we don't want to just treat symptoms. We want to get the body healthy. And if you're ignoring the nerve system and just doing, again, the GI reboot, then again, you're missing a major part of the underlying causes of it. So make sure that we are, really making sure that the nerve system is healthy, and then implementing, again, the body's ability to rebuild the digestive system. So again, the digestive enzyme right there, that's going to be critical if you have any sort of gallbladder issues. If you don't have a gallbladder, you have to make sure you're taking the digestive system. It has ox bile in it, which again, is going to help with the nutrient breakdown. The probiotics that we use specifically is 50 billion, which it's a large amount. It's more than you've ever seen in any other supplement on the market right here. But it also has a huge variety. There's like 10 different probiotics in it. Some of the best probiotics on the market only have like 3 or 4, and this one has 10. The Gut Renew is going to really help to repair the mucosal lining. So it's going to reduce the inflammatory responses to help seal the gut. And then we're going to use something called the Max GI instead of the GI Balance right here. So I'm going to actually change that out and use the Max GI. And the reason I'm a big fan of the Max GI is because it has very specific things in it that will kill the bad bacteria. So it's almost like a GI detox type of scenario where, again, it's identifying and killing the bad bacteria. It's breaking down the cell walls, so that way we can allow the good bacteria to be promoted. All right, guys. So make sure, again, we're focusing on the cause. We're giving the body exactly what it needs to heal and to be healthy, and removing the interferences in the system to allow the body to do what it's supposed to do, and that's to heal.